last night with that fellow?
yourself and turn off your videos as well. And participants, those who are in the platform, can yourself can also place your questions in the chat box here, and rest of the participants will be there in the YouTube. Yeah. Yeah, hi and hello everyone. A warm good morning to everybody. I am Partha from the Biomix team. Would like to welcome you all for today's talk. Today we have another great personality in our platform, an eminent scientist from Calcutta University, and we his Dr. Professor Supriti Sarkar is with us today for today's talk. She will be delivering her talk on hormones and stress with special reference to depression. On behalf of my entire team of Biomix, I would like to extend my warm welcome to Dr. Supriti Sarkar. She is with us by accepting my honorable request, by accepting a special request from me today. She is twice, this is the second time she is with us in our platform. And on behalf of my entire team, I would like to thank Professor Dr. Supriti Sarkar for being with us and accepting our request. She is all well-known a person. Our audience all know about herself that he is a specialization as in endocrinology, and I hope she will be the hot person in delivering her talk on the same topic. At this moment, I would thank all the participants who are joined with us for today's talk. And as usual, we used to have question and answer sessions at the end of the presentation. Your people in the YouTube can place their questions in the chat box of YouTube. During question and answer sessions, I am here to bring your queries to the guest speaker. People in the platform too can place your questions in the chat box. During question and answer session, your questions will also be taken. And without any further delay, we will step on to the session. It's my personal opinion and it's my personal regard. I have thought that we should honor our late speakers. On this regard, today I have invited our former speaker, one of our former speakers, Professor Ashok Chakravarti is with us. He is a wildlife biologist, a freelance writer, is with us today, who is my teacher who taught me ecology when I was in bachelor's in St. Joseph's in Trichy, Tamil Nadu. And he is with us today let me give him a credit of introducing our today's speaker, Dr. Supriti Sarkar. So you can introduce our today's speaker to the audience.
So thank you, Mr. Parthasarathi. Good morning to everybody. And thanks for giving me a wonderful opportunity to honor Dr. Supriti Sarkar. And Dr. Supriti Sarkar is my mentor and professor and guru, and then my Parthasarathi, who was my students. And this is something special today. And thanks for a wonderful opportunity. Dr. Supriti Sarkar is presently working as an associate professor in the Department of Zoology in the City College at Calcutta University in Kolkata. And she is also a teacher, postgraduate endocrinology in Midnapur Autonomous College, West Bengal. And Dr. Supriti Sarkar has obtained her postdoctorate from ICMR, National Institute of Cholera and Enteric Disease, NICD, in molecular endocrinology, and she did her PhD in zoology and reproductive endocrinology from Calcutta University. And Dr. Supriti Sarkar has passed out her master degree, MSc Zoology with university rank from University of Calcutta. Dr. Sarkar has more than 25 international and national research papers, and she wrote 3 textbooks for graduate students and many research articles, etc. And she has presented the research works in international conference too. And also she engaged with the editorial board and reviewer works from few journals of esteemed publishers like Elsewhere and Wiley Online and Springer, etc. And Dr. Supriti Sarkar has been working in the current research interest is an effects of fenugreek on diabetic and her passion and bird nesting programs. And he is very much interested in wildlife and particularly that avian ecology and avian study. And so he's also the studying in the how industrial affecting the bird nesting program. And currently that he is working in the National Wildlife Board in West Bengal. And I welcome Dr. Supriti Sarkar once again and this wonderful program. And thank you, Partha and he's giving me a wonderful opportunity and introduce Dr. Supriti Sarkar. And I welcome to one and all in this wonderful program, and also that Dr. Supriti Sarkar. And thank you, madam. And now over to the Partha.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for your generous introduction about our speaker. Now, I request Dr. Supriti Sarkar to deliver a talk on hormones and stress with special reference to depression. Ma'am, over to you.
Okay. Very good morning, everybody. And also, I like to express my heartfelt thanks to Partha and Ashoka for their nice introduction. And at the same time, I express my heartfelt gratitude to Team Biomix for inviting me once more here to share something with this valued audience about hormone and stress. So let me start my talk. So shall I present now?
Yeah, ma'am, sure.
Yeah. Oh, some problem I got. Okay, let me start again. Sorry. Okay. So as I asked to tell something about hormones, that's why I'm thinking the current situations, I mean, this pandemic situation, sure, caused by SARS-2 virus or COVID-19 virus. I decided to tell something about hormones and stress with special reference to depression, because these pandemic situations, I think it is not only undesirable, rather it is threatening and still stressful to most of us. So today my topics will be on hormones and stress with special reference to depressions. Frankly telling that we generally mix up between the two terms, stress and stressors. So, for example, to us, COVID is the stressors. COVID is a stress, or this pandemic situation is a stress. No, actually, these are the stressors. So, let us know what is stress. And now, you know, the Hungarian endocrinologist Han Hugo Brunoselli, which also referred as the father of stress biology, he first coined the term stress, and he defined stress as a non-specific response of the body to any demand for change. He also included that every stress leaves an indelible scar, and the organisms, that means subject, pays for its survival after a stressful situation by becoming a little older. So,
ma'am, excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah, tell me.
Ma'am.
What happened?
Ma'am, are you presenting?
Yeah, can't you see?
No, ma'am, it's not visible.
Oh,
can you do it again?
Oh, so couldn't you see anything, no?
No, ma'am.
What happened? Can you see now?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
So shall I start from the beginning?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. You can start.
Now, can you see?
Yes, ma'am. It's visible now.
Okay. Thank you, Partha, for reminding me. Okay,
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
so let us start from the very beginning. So today I'll be talking on hormones and stress with special reference to depression. As we are passing through this pandemic situation, so I think this topic will be a little bit relevant because still we are, though it is now unlocked period, but most of us are still passing through threatening and stressful situations. So what I am talking that generally we mess up or we mix up between stress and stressors. To us, whenever we talk, we tell the stress, actually we want to refer the stressors. So let us think let us know what is stress actually. So the term stress was first coined by the Hungarian endocrinologist Hans Hugo Bruno Sely, who coined the term stress, and he Sally still is considered to us as the father of stress biology. He worked a lot on endocrinology of stress. Now, according to him, stress is, as he defined, stress as the non-specific response of our body to any demand for change. He also told that each stress leaves an indelible scar, and the organism pays for its survival after a stressful situation by becoming a little older. So, stress actually is our body's biological reactions or responses to the stimuli or the events or the situations which we perceive as a challenging or threatening, rather undesirable. So it disturbs the homeostasis of our body, and that's why we require an adjustment. Now, what is homeostasis? As you know, that we are always under little stress, but still our body functions run in a equilibrium state. That means smoothly. So homeostasis is a stable physiological calmness or balance and occurs when our bodily functions are running smoothly in conjunction with low stress. Say for normally our blood sugar levels remain 80 to 120 mg per dl, but it goes up or below even little, then our body's normal function can be changed. So body will then will try to keep it to restore it in the normal level by means of stress response. So what we do or how we react against the threatful or stressful situations, that is the stress. So what is the stressors? Stressors are the factors which disturbs our body's functions, maybe physiological functions or any mental functions. Now, stressors can be, so hereafter, whenever me also tell or will represent stress, that will mean actually the stress response. In short, we refer it as the stress. Anyway, so stressors may be physical when it occurs within our body, like diseases, infections, metabolic disorders, and many others. And it may be mental. Mental means when it is generated by our brain, mainly like anxiety, irritability, depressions, and so on. But psychological is little different from the mental stressors, because when the situations like this that we apprehend some emotional, we get some emotional feelings like grief, sadness. Say, for example, one incident may be pleasant to us, and to other it may be unpleasant. So these kinds of stressors are regarded as psychological, and it may be internal, as I told, it may be physiological, and external like COVID, etc. So here is a photograph of Hans Selye, the father of stress biology. Now, scientists nowadays consider the stress responses two types. They categorized. Eustress means the positive stress responses. Actually, it helps us to, it involves moderate stress response with high performance. That means it helps us to overcome our challenges. That's why it accomplishes demanding tasks. And it gives us a positive feeling, and it keeps us mental and physical health well. So it motivates and focuses energy, and it is mainly of short durations, and it improves our performance. Here are the examples of eustress responses or the eustressors. say for when we get promotion or a new job, marrying, like this. And on the other hand, there may be many distress responses or distressors. These are usually referred as negative responses because it is inadequate or inappropriate stress response. That's why it results in unpleasant emotional reactions, or it may cause damage or some decline to our physical health. And thus, naturally, it will result in anxiety or deserves concern, and it may be short and long term, and it is outside of our coping abilities. So we feel unpleasant and decreases our performance. Now, here are the examples of distressful responses or distressors. Here again, I'm showing so many distress responses or distressor situations we can have. If I like to explain, I may be distressed. So now a little discussion about how Sally describes that how the stress response generated or how does it work. Now, according to Staley, the stress response is a three-stage general biological reactions, mind it, general. So he called it as the general adaptation syndrome or GAS that actually published long back in 1936 in Nature. So it describes body's both short and long-term reactions or adaptations or responses to any stressors in order to restore homeostasis, which regardless of the nature of the stress. And usually it has a quite uniform pattern of response. That's why he referred this as the general. So again, I'm telling it is general because it can be produced by any kinds of stressors, and in a usually the effect is general. That means damage or defense mechanisms all in a broad aspects, and it acts on the large portion of our body. And adaptation because it helps us to adapt or to cope to adjust with the stressors or the changes in the surroundings. And syndrome because not a single symptoms it generates, rather many symptoms which are coordinated and largely dependent upon each other. That's why he referred these stress responses as the general adaptation syndrome. Now, as was told by Sally, it is a three-stage reaction. So let us know. So when suppose our body was in homeostasis, all the functions, physical, mental, were going smoothly. So if now then stressor posed upon us, we perceive any stress, first of all, our resistance will fall, and this is the alarm stage. Now, second stage, our adaptations or our adaptability increases. That means we try to resist the damages caused by the stressors. And if it is exceeds the level resistance, then we got exhausted. So thus it is the GAS generally occurs in three stages: alarm reactions, resistance stage, and exhaustion stage. Let us have a little discussion. So alarm reactions, body resistance to physical damage suddenly drop. For a short time, it drops. And then body tries to cope with the stressors quickly, either by fleeing or confronting the threat. And it is generally occurs for a short time and following acute stress. Say when in a grazing field, a zebra or antelope is grazing, and suddenly if it sees a tiger or lioness is coming, it may be freezed for a while. Then it may run away. But in case of bison, if it sees that a hunter is coming, it may get freeze, but then and then it may attack. So during alarm or reactions, either we flee or we fight. And actually, another endocrinologist, scientist, Walter Cannon, he described this part of the stress response as fight and flight response. Later we'll discuss it in detail. Now, second stage, as I mentioned, it's a resistance. It's second stage. What happened if you could not can't fly or even couldn't flee from the stressors? Then we increases our body increases our resistance power. So to achieve the optimal adaptations by resisting the stressors and try to restore the homeostasis back. So all the physiological activities which started during alarm reactions that also persist in a heightened level during the stage of resistance. But if exhaustion, third stage is the stage of exhaustion, if these resistance mechanisms go far because of continuous and acute stress, then it can cause many multifactorial disorders, and in turn that overreactions may lead to downward spiral of mood stress, and we feel exhausted, and body actually gets exhausted, and possibly extinction may occur. But if the original threats or stressors passes away, then we can get back normal homeostasis. So how our body perform this stress response? Within our body, it is the brain and autonomic nervous systems, mainly sympathetic nervous systems, and then the neuroendocrine systems, which mainly involve hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. These two regulatory systems actually perform this stress response. So what is performed by the central nervous system or the brain? Actually, brains always get involved with the thought process. So it first analyzes the potentially threatening situations. That means whether the threat or the stressors are really threatful, or can it be overcome with the help of higher cognitive areas like prefrontal cortex by some voluntary options. It modifies the automatic responses like anxiety, fear, which is usually automatically generated just following the stressors. Brain analyze actual situations. Then the latter part, that means respective reactions, is done by the automatic and neuroendocrine systems by other parts of the limbic. You know, the limbic is a very important part of the brain. It includes hippocampus, which actually deals with the memory. See, whether the tigress was known to the zebra or not. So whenever we feel perceive any stress, our brain hippocampus try to recall it is familiar or it's a novel. And amygdala, it helps in the emotional processings. And thalamus helps in the sensory perception, and that then send to the information to amygdala. But how we watching or how we hearing the stressors. So sensory activities are performed by thalamus, and hypothalamus, it controls many functions. In latter part, it will come many times, mainly control the activities of HP axis and other parts of the brain also. And brainstem, it the pons and locus coeruleus, that is involved mainly in sympathetic and central nervous system parts. So this is the brain regions which are mainly involved in stress response. Limbic system, it's a very important part, hippocampus and amygdala, and it is the other parts of the brain. Now, whatever may be the nature of the stressors, same body's part, brain's part will get involved. Say for we are listening something, a bomb blast, or I'm watching here a snake, whatever may be external, it will be sensed from the cerebral sensory cortex. And internal, that means it may be, say for instance, if I feel nausea now, or I get if I get tensed or high blood pressures, all will be quantified by various parts of the same parts of the brain. Say for like that is also true for emotional stressors, that will be formulated or assessed by amygdala, and memory related stressors, memory part, retrieval, everything will be done by the hippocampus. And all these parts, they, whatever may be the initial stressors, it may be acute or prolonged and later stage, but initially all parts of the brain will work in the same pathway. Limbic system, which via the locus coeruleus, then sympathetic nervous system, then by adrenal cortex, and hypothalamus mainly by hypothalamic pituitary adrenal cortex, like this. So So now let us discuss the stage-wise reactions and related hormone reactions of the GASH and related hormones. So what are the physiological changes we do feel during alarm reactions? It is characterized mainly alteration of metabolism because either we fight, or we fly away, run away. It needs a huge amount of energy. So altered metabolism activities will be highly altered, and at the same time, our cardiovascular and respiratory systems also do be modified to accommodate that reactions, to counteract that reactions. But at the same time, pain reaction perception get decreased. And the processes which actually hamper our vigilance or our observation power, like sexual or reproductive activities, that sort of activities will be decreased during alarm reactions, because we have to put more attention. We must have to alert. No, so metabolic alternations mainly involved in the increase of sugar glycemia. That means glucose level will be high. And lipolysis and proteolysis, that means lipid and protein breakdown, will also be high to make available free fatty acid and amino acids, so that it can be utilized in the formation of glucose. Because you know that glucose is the main source of energy following glycolysis. It will give us the ATP. And glycogenolysis, that means breakdown of glycogen, will also be increased to provide glucose. And gluconeogenesis, where from this compound, glucose can be newly formed. But insulin stimulated glucose uptake, and protein and fatty acid glycogen synthesis, that will be inhibited, because if glucose is no more present in the blood, then how we'll get the energy? How the tissues or cells will get energy sources? So insulin will that time will stop glucose uptake by different tissues, and synthesis parts will be also decreased to make available the precursor of glucose. Now, cardiovascular respiratory changes, actually the pulse and high pressures, pulse rate and high pressures will go up, and bronchodilations will occur. That means lung will be dilated so that it accommodates huge amount of air, so that we can get more oxygen. And glucose will be supplied rapidly to many important parts, muscle, because muscle, if we fight or flight, whatever may be our peripheral organs activities, it needs energy. And heart, because heart pump will be higher, so heart, the cardiac muscles will need more energy. And also brain, because sensory activities, brain will perform so many activities that also need more energy from glucose, as well as to burn the glucose, it will need the oxygen also. And sodium will be retained in the kidney or in the blood, because to keep the blood pressure high. And circulatory volume will be high, because if blood is less, then how it will reach all the essential elements, will reach the target. And it will be done by the ADH. And analgesia, starting induced analgesia, would be also changed. Sometimes we feel mostly pain perception will be decreased. If we feel pain or we get shocked, then we cannot be alert. It will draw our attentions. And cognitive and emotional alertness will also be high. So now, how the autonomic nervous system take part in the alarm reactions? You know, autonomic nervous system has two parts, parasympathetic and sympathetic. It is very important, sympathetic, because it is concerned mainly with the involuntary reactions, like when we get afraid, we expand our people get dilated, and sympathetic nerves nuclei are also present along the spinal cord, and it will controls all involuntary actions, that is inhibits flow of saliva. Often we feel dry mouth when we get afraid mainly. And it will help in the accelerating heartbeat, bronchial dilations. It inhibit peristalsis and secretions to inhibit or to make micturition and defecation motion slow. But conversion of glycogen to glucose will be increased, and it also inhibit bladder contractions, the different parasympathetic nerves. But its main function is to control the secretion of adrenaline and noradrenaline from the adrenal medulla. Now, parasympathetic, what it does, it a little bit opposite. That means if sympathetic acts as a for it causes what is stimulations, and it a little bit inhibits all the heightened functions caused by the sympathetic nervous systems. Now here is I'm going to focus main functions of the sympathetic nervous system. As I told you, it controls secretion of catecholamines from adrenal gland, and adrenal has the outer part cortex and inner medulla made of chromaffin cells, from which catecholamines, that is amino hormone, coupled with catechol group, and it is synthesized from the single amino acid tyrosines through this pathway. Tyrosine is converted to dopa, then dopamine, then norepinephrine, and then epinephrine. This is the rate limiting steps which involve is the enzymatic activity of the PNMT or phenylethanolamine N methyl transferase. So these two hormones very much involved in the first stage of the stress response, that is the alarm reactions. How do they act? Since this catecholamine mainly controlled by sympathetic nervous systems, so it is also known as a SAM. It stands for sympathetic adrenomedullary axis. You know that during flight and fight actions, 80% that responses are carried out by epinephrine, and rest 20% is carried out by norepinephrine, which is secreted from adrenal medulla. But in addition to the source adrenal medulla, these amines or catecholamines are secreted from different parts of the brain, because these, especially the norepinephrine, are an important neurotransmitters. So they are under control of other parts of the brain, like limbic system, locus coeruleus, hypothalamus, so on. So when they're released as a hormone in the blood, they circulated in bound form with albumin, and it acts very fast, because all the alarm reactions, first responses occur very quickly. And actually, so catecholamines mainly perform all these functions, and they are degraded in liver very quickly, very short lifetime, say for a few seconds. Now, what main functions they perform? They causes constriction of blood vessels in the skin. Actually, that's why it helps that will help to keep our body temperature, and increases glucose level in blood, and increases our cardiac output, heart rate, and opening of or dilations of bronchi and lungs, alveoli also. They helps in retaining sodium in the blood, and sends more blood flow to skeletal muscles, brain, and other parts, and slowing down our intestinal motility. Peristalsis slows down, and making when it is secreted, we feel excited, and metabolic effects, as I told you, increases the level of glucose and free fatty acids. So what from this, what we got, that most of the functions which I told that occurs during the alarm reactions is performed by the catecholamine. So catecholamine is the main mediator of the alarm reactions of the stress response. And in our early books, we referred catecholamines as the hormone of emergency. That means it is a time of the alarm reactions. Now, catecholamine, as you have seen, it can work on the skin, even it can work on the heart. So it works through different receptors, and it is an amine in nature. So they work on this target through adrenergic receptors, and which are classified in alpha and beta tape, which again classified into alpha 1, alpha 2, or beta 1, beta 2 receptors. And various organs it targets, it acts through different receptors. Here, common chart I'm showing how do they work. So both catecholamines, when they act through alpha 1 adrenal receptors, they act by phospholipase C pathway, and then the DAG, diacylglycerols, or IP3 inositol triphosphate acts as a second messenger. The same hormones So in this pathway, actually, they work mainly on liver and alpha 1, that is the liver. Both liver, they can act this beta receptors and alpha receptors. But same hormone, when act via the beta receptors, they act via CMP-mediated pathway, second messengers. And that time they increases the CMP production and protein kinase. The same hormone, when acts by alpha 2 receptors, they can act via same pathway CMP, but that time they can inhibit the formation of CMP as well as protein kinase. You see, same hormone, as I told you, when they act on the skin, it causes vasoconstrictions. But same hormones, when act on the lung, bronchi, that is also made of smooth muscles, they cause dilations of the relaxations of the muscles. So same hormone, at the same time, they can cause smooth muscle contractions or as well as smooth muscle dilations. So various types of works are done by various types of signaling mechanisms, signaling pathway through different types of receptors. Mainly in heart, the beta 1 receptors, and beta 2 causes vasodilations or smooth muscle relaxations, and alpha 1 causes constrictions. But the main functions, what we need during alarm reactions, that is the metabolic alterations in the glucose metabolism that is done in the liver cells or hepatocytes via the beta 2 or alpha 1 receptors. As I mentioned, that it is done through the adenylate cyclase and increasing CMP and protein kinase, which either by gluconeogenesis or glycogenesis, that means production of glucose is somehow through various enzymatic steps gets high, and then it reaches to blood, acts as a fuel for flight and flight reactions, and after getting reached to different targets. One, I'm not going to discuss the metabolic pathway. So during fight and flight response, we see dual stress response. As I described till now, it is acute stress and fast. That is done by the SAM, that is sympathetic adrenomedullary axis. That means mainly autonomic parts with sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic mainly done by adrenal medulla, and this is function separate about the brains. I told you. So sympathetic nervous systems actually acts as a car's fuel. Fuel means it speed up, or it supplies a burst of energy to the cells or body tissues, different parts of body tissues for physical activity. And if this physical activities goes or do any problem or do any damage, then parasympathetic nervous system dampens this, or they subside those activated functions. So parasympathetic nervous system somehow likes as a brake of the car. And these sympathetic nervous systems occur so fast, you even can't imagine. Say, if I put an example, say for when we jumped out of the path of an incoming car, even we don't know what we are doing. So sympathetic nervous systems works in it work even without informing the brain, even faster than the brain starts its other sensory perceptive actions. So it is so fast because it is part of autonomic nervous systems. But not always the stressor remains upon us or acts on us for a short while. Now, if it is continuous for a little more time, and if it becomes intense, then brain's other part, that is hypothalamic pituitary axis, will be activated. HP axis will also help us to combat the flight and fight reactions, or it also make us or adapt it for these alarm reactions. Now, HP axis, it has main component. H stands for hypothalamus. It's a part of the brain and it's a very important part of the brain. P is the pituitary, another endocrine gland, and E is the adrenal. So whenever we feel, as I told you, uh, uh, if the stress that was posed upon us in the during alarm stage, at the first stage of the response, it continues, or when it is heightened, then stress, as usual, stress will act on the brain. So hypothalamus then will secrete from its PVN, paraventricular nuclei, the CRF or CRH, corticotropic releasing hormone, into the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal vessel. From there, it will reach to the, along with CRH, along with adrenaline vasopressins, to amino acid protein hormones will be released in that portal circulation, and that will reach to the anterior pituitary. They will act on the corticotropic cells of the anterior pituitary, from where ACTH, adrenocorticotropic cells, will be produced from pro-opiomelanocortin, POMC. This ACTH or corticotropin will be released in the systemic circulations, and that will act on the adrenal cortex, that is the outer part of the cortex. And this will then causes a release of glucocorticoids. It's a main mediator, the end product or the final product of the HPA axis. It can control this glucocorticoid, blood level of glucocorticoid can control the ACTH secretions, the negative feedback, and also the CRH secretions. That means glucocorticoid can regulate the whole axis by negative feedback. It is very important. That's why I mentioned it here. Now, the CRH or the corticotropic releasing hormone, being the first product of the first component of the HP axis, it shows it in circadian rhythm in its secretion. It is usually high in the morning time and lowest during the night time. And besides controlling HP axis, it is also controls stress responses because it has another many other functions, mainly integrations of endocrine, neural control, autonomic and immunologic and behavioral reflexes also. And it also controls the secretion of another neurotransmitter from the same part of the anterior pituitary, and it acts on many other stress-related activities. It also controls like appetite, increases anxiety. Actually, anxiety and also emotion that we will see improves our memory and attention power like this. So all the stressful experiences or adaptations or activities during stress conditions, CRH plays a great role. And ACTH is the second component secreted from the anterior pituitary, following activated by CRH. Now, the last or the main component is the cortisol. See, now the glucocorticoid is a general broad term, and in human, this hormone is mainly cortisol, whereas in the rodents, it is the corticosteroids. It can bind with the different receptors, so glucocorticoid as well as mineralocorticoid. We will get chance to discuss it in detail. At glucocorticoid secretions or cortisol secretions, again in controlled by stress and circadian rhythm, that happens in case of CRH, being high in the morning time and evening. As it decreases our normal activities, its secretion gets down. And the other parts of the brain and different neurotransmitters also can control it. And it can control its own secretions by negative feedback on anterior pituitary and hypothalamus. Actually, this cortisols, though participates in all three stages of the gas. But in for alarm reaction, it shows short-term activations. If the stage of resistance, it shows prolonged activations. But if it is further prolonged, its overproduction can cause many damage that is referred as exhaustion or leading to extinction or exhaustion stage of the stress response. So it is very important for all three stages of the stress response. So glucocorticoid is mainly ACTH, since have the main intense receptors in the third zone of the adrenal cortex. Adrenal cortex is the outer part of the adrenal, and middle layer is the zona fasciculata. So cortisol is being mainly secreted from these parts. From it is a steroid hormone, unlike amines. So yes, that is amine secreted from the medulla. It is a steroid, so it is produced from the cholesterol and by this pathway from zona fasciculata. Now, glucocorticoid, like it is a physiologically very important hormone because it performs so many functions normally, as well as its dysregulations or its altered secretions can cause so many disorders, especially during stress situations. So let us have a first look. So in liver, it increases like that of catecholamines. It increases gluconeogenesis. That means formation of glucose from other non-carbohydrate substances. So overproduction will cause more and more glucose productions. That ultimately will lead to impaired glucose tolerance and ultimately resulting in diabetes mellitus. And adipose tissues also, it increases lipolysis. That means breakdown of lipids to make available free fatty acids for the generation or production of glucose. And simultaneously, it inhibits glucose uptake, as I mentioned earlier, by the tissues. So both these activities, if glucocorticoids are produced in huge amount, similarly, they will result in insulin resistance and ultimately diabetes-like symptoms. And skeletal muscles, it also reduces the glucose uptake to make available glucose for to combat the stress needed physical activities. So if glucose uptake reduces too much, then body muscles, it is made of different proteins like then body will muscles if reduces glucose uptake reduces too much, then our muscle cannot get required energy. So we then feel muscle weakness and muscle pain also, and ultimately that muscle atrophy not, but glucose uptake is reduced. Then also insulin will fail to act, so insulin resistance will may result. And at the same time, it will increases proteolysis and protein synthesis decreases. And pancreas, it is anti-insulinogenic like epinephrine. So it inhibits insulin secretions because it try to keep the glucose always in the blood, never to reduce the glucose level. And other physiological activities are important parts, like includes it acts on the bone. It inhibits bone formation, but increases osteoclastic, that means bone resorption or bone dissolution functions increases. And so overproduction may cause osteoporosis. Collagen synthesis, it inhibits. That also results in osteoporosis if it is secreted in higher amount. GIT, it reduces calcium absorption, thereby overproduction naturally will cause osteoporosis. Kidney, it helps in sodium retention because in stress combating, during stress combating mechanisms, we need pressure should be a little bit high. So thus it retains sodium in the blood, but overproductions may cause hypertension. And other functions, important functions, the behavior. So, all hormones never act directly on the metabolic activities or some other tissues or any other targets. They do not act directly, but they act by the receptors. Actually, receptors brings about all hormones' biological actions. So, whenever GC or glucocorticoid is secreted, it needs to express its receptors in important organs or its target organs, especially in brain. So it in itself increases it's a common rule of a hormone. It increases expression of its receptor protein in its targets. But if it goes high or altered expression of these receptors, then we may feel burnout and many mental problems. Now, glucocorticoids' main function is the defense mechanism. As such, it is that it is inhibitory or immunosuppressive. At the same time, it's anti-inflammatory. See, that inflammation is a part of innate immunity. That means inflammation helps us immunity. It gives us more immune power. But if glucocorticoid secretions get high, that means it will cause inflammations. So anti-inflammatory as such, that means it inhibits immunity, our immune power. That's why it is generally referred as immunosuppressive. How does it performs its functions? Monocytes are macrophage, as you know. Monocytes, when reaches to different cells, it becomes fix almost and little traveling power losses, and then it is become known as macrophages. So glucocorticoid or GC inhibits its number and expression of different immune molecules like class 2 different interleukins on the macrophages. T cells, T lymphocytes, it also decreases the number, which mediates the cell-mediated immunity and production and actions of many important cytokines from the T cells. So, glucocorticoids being immunosuppressive or anti-inflammatory, it inhibits all these important functions. But granulocytes, it just increases the neutrophils. But other granulocyte, eosinophil and basophils, it also decreases. Endothelial cells, it performs the very important functions during endothelial cells means the epithelial cells which are present in our blood vessel wall. It decreases the vascular permeability. Thus, it inhibits the entry or the passage of many important immune molecules to reach to the site of the inflammations. And also inhibits expression of many adhesive molecules in the endothelial cells. Fibroblast, it causes healing of the after inflammation or any infections. The tissue, when it heals up, healing occurs, so that fibroblast helps because it's a proliferation. And with the help of different proteins, and prostaglandin also helps in these processes. But GC or glucocorticoid inhibits these functions. That means it's anti-inflammatory as well as immunosuppressive. Now, as I told you that it is not the hormone, but it's receptor. How does it act? The receptors, how do they act? It actually represents the hormone's function. So whenever we see that these hormones do these functions, actually they're executed by different signaling pathway by means of its receptors that are present on the targets of respective hormones. So glucocorticoid, from my short discussion, it appears that it can perform so many functions. So it like that the receptors of catecholamines, glucocorticoid receptors also shows a polymorphism. It may be GR means a glucocorticoid receptors, many isoforms like GR alpha, GR beta, gamma, and A, B types, and they are expressed in different target ones, or some are especially present in the brain. No, glucocorticoid hormone is a steroid, so they can show both genomic and non-genomic effects. Non-genomic means when the glucocorticoid binds, their receptors are present mainly cytoplasmic, and that time non-genomic is so it won't have, the receptor won't have to travel or translocate to the nucleus. So which activities like metabolic activities, alterations of glucose levels, or the cardiovasculars, that means blood pressure increase, or this type of activities needs quick actions. So that time glucocorticoid acts via cytoplasmic receptors in non-genomic pathway, via mainly IP3 or ATK pathways and nitric oxide pathways. That signaling mechanisms for it can be generated within minutes, non-genomic pathway. But when the activities may be a little slower, labelless, or when it occurs for several days or weeks, even years, that time slow actions usually done by the genomic pathway, because in that case it will bind with its receptors, then the receptor will go nucleus, then it will generate two types of reactions, transactivation, transuppression. So immunosuppressive or anti-inflammatory actions usually done by genomic pathway. And here I like to mention, because the glucocorticoid receptors, as well as the hormone, as I told you, besides immunological functions, it also regulate many important functions related to cardiovascular activities. So GR, if it is overactivated or under, they can alter heart pumping mechanisms and atherosclerosis. That means deposition of atherosclerotic plaque in the blood vessels, which may result in heart attack or CAD. Coronary artery diseases, because long activations can produce so much fat or deposition of free fatty acids in blood, and consequent deposition in blood vessels. Similarly, overproduction may cause cardiovascular septic, like injury, and it may causes even hypoxia. And cardiac development also depends on the GR signaling pathway, cardiac contractility, blood pressures. So see, all these important functions are controlled by glucocorticoid or by the GR signaling. So its overproductions or under or over expressions of GR may hamper all these functions, so which are common symptoms of stress. Now, I like to focus something about how does glucocorticoid immunosuppressive or anti-inflammatory functions are carried out or go on in our body. Both are genomic functions, and I think many of you are familiar with the transactivation and transuppression functions. Let us discuss it with these photos. So when the cortisol or the our human glucocorticoid reaches the cell, the target cells, its receptors usually remain in many chaperones. These are the heat shock proteins. The receptors remain associated or inactivated with these associated chaperones. But when glucocorticoid reaches the cell or enters the cytoplasm, it binds with the receptors. This binding causes dissociations of the chaperones, and that means the receptors along with the ligand, that means the glucocorticoid gets activated. They may form dimer with another such activated receptors, and this dimer then enters the translocated in the nucleus. Then its target gene, so it's a long thread of DNA. So in case of trans activations, this receptor dimer then bind with the promoter regions with the GRE elements. That means glucocorticoid receptor responsive elements within the promoters. So as it get bound, so that gene will be activated. And what is this gene? It is the anti-inflammatory. So this gene will then secrete anti-inflammatory interleukins like IL-10, etc., and others. So transactivation here causes the secretions of anti-inflammatory cytokines. But during transsuppressions, as the name suggests, suppressions, actually the actual mechanism still not clear. So because the inflammatory genes lacks these kinds of GRE sequences in their promoters, but it will act on inflammatory genes also. Here, what happens so scientists used to use the term tethering. That means not the receptor protein or DNA binding, rather here protein-protein interactions happens. What is it? Then at that time, during transsuppressions, the receptor binds with histolyl transferase or nuclear factor kappa beta or CREB or CMP activated proteins. Like these types of, they get assembled, so they repress the gene's expressions. That means suppression. So the mRNA won't transcribe any inflammatory cytokines like IL-6 or tumor necrosis factors or interferon. other interferons. So thus it inhibits inflammations and or anti-inflammatory functions are exerted, and it performs its immunosuppressive roles. Is it clear? So what happens during the stress? These inflammations or defense, immune functions and defense mechanism, what happens during the stress situations. So in normal physiological activities, when little we face the stresses, it acts as a brain. The brain naturally will stimulate upon being sensitized or perceiving this stress of brain, naturally will stimulate the HP axis, and it will cause the release of cortisol from or glucocorticoid from adrenal cortex. Now that time, ordinary immune cells will be activated, and so that time anti-inflammatory cytokines like IL-10 will be secreted. And since it is anti-inflammatory, so body won't suffer or get any additional inflammations. So normally, as usual, its function will be remain as anti-inflammatory. But if the stress continues, say it is we are reaching the stress response is going to the resistant stress, what will happen then? Since the stress is getting acute or for prolonged time, so brain will perceive as a little bit more stressed. Brain will, so it will then hyperactive. So it is then stimulate the high HP axis more intensely. So being hyperactivated, initially more and more cortisol will be secreted, and that time sympathetic and also parasympathetic also work on these inflammatory immune cells like activated macrophage or T lymphocytes like that, even B lymphocytes also. So when stress became intense or long for acts for a long durations, brains will causes hyperactivations of. So initially hyperactivations will result in high and chronic cortisol release. Ultimately, so as a result, inflammatory cells will be activated that will secrete this time inflammatory or pro-inflammatory cytokines like IL-10. So these inflammatory immune cells, IL-6, that time it will develop or generate many inflammation reactions in our body. So since the inflammatory immune cells are activated, so more that results with the development of inflammations. Those inflammations will put additional stress on the brain. So brain will be little bit tired. That's why I put it orange color here. So ultimately, what will happen? So if it is continuous, it is become truly chronic and as well as intense, or say for only chronic. More and more inflammations. This axis is still hyperactivated. These inflammatory immune cells are still activated. So brain will tired. Because of that, what will happen? That this HP axis, mainly the negative feedback loop, as I mentioned earlier. So this high cortisol, instead, they will fail. They will fail the negative feedback loop. That means this high cortisol will fail to stop its own secretion from the brain, because that time this HPA axis will be totally dysregulated. Totally dysregulated. So the cortisol will remain high, as well as at the same time, what will happen? It will be unable to dysregulate that hyperactive inflammatory immune cells. So inflammatory or pro-inflammatory cytokines will be continuously releasing. They will develop or generate more and more inflammation throughout our body or in respective organs. So that will put more and more stress to the brain. So brain damage will start because it will lose its control over the HP axis. Hypothalamus will be damaged. That time, what will happen? Adrenal will also become damaged little bit, because these regulations control over that immune cells will be totally insensitive to the glucocorticoids. So this stage is known as glucocorticoid resistance, or glucocorticoid receptor responsiveness. It will be low. As such, what happens simultaneously, since in blood there is high amount of glucocorticoid, as it failed to regulate negatively regulate its own secretions. So adrenal gland will feel what is the need to produce more glucocorticoid. Third, so adrenal will then start secreting very scanty or little amount of cortisols. So double problem. As such, that inflammatory heightened immune cells will fail to secrete, will not stop to secrete inflammatory cytokines, and at the same time, adrenal will stop secreting glucocorticoid. So brain will damage, and following that, adrenal will be almost tired, and that will result in chronic stress or cortisol resistance. But in fact, before adrenal stopping its secreting glucocorticoids, people usually suffer with different immune dysfunctions related with autoimmune diseases, many inflammatory diseases, even in the heart, as well as death. Even it may cause many death also. So, stage of resistance when it happens, reach adrenal still try by producing excessive glucocorticoid, and also it tries that time to optimize the survival by alternations of the immune functions. But when this inflammatory reactions is too high, it poses more stressors additionally to the brain. So if stress continues for long times, body resistance, especially defense mechanisms, will collapse. And at the same time, the glucocorticoid will fail to meet up the energy demands. So this exaggerated, the stress will be exaggerated, and following the dysregulation of HP axis or overproduction of glucocorticoids, and consequent glucocorticoid resistance. So we will then develop many physical and psychological problems that may ultimately cause death also. That is the stage of exhaustions. So here is the many consequences of these stages. Like we may suffer from many non-heritable heart diseases and diabetes, as well as immunodeficiency, anxiety-related problems, headache, like this, and other mental disorders also. So actually, when corticosteroids remains high, how our brain responds, how actually brain, as I in my initial slides, I told you that brain during any stress response, brain actually perform formulation of thought process, control the emotional. So what happens during that time in the brain? Let us discuss that obviously in short. So glucocorticoid, as I told you, it can act via both glucocorticoid receptors as well as mineralocorticoid receptors. So this AMR is present mainly in the important organs of brain, that is the limbic system, whereas GR or glucocorticoid receptors are present throughout the brain. Now, how it can be possible? The same hormone can act via both receptors. Actually, they have both can share 96% homology in their DNA binding domain. That means with that part by which they bind with the promoter. So they can recognize the same sequences within the promoter of the target genes. And both hormone shares some mainly, in addition to their individual genes, they can act on same genes also, like both receptors, like FKBP5 and PAR1 and SGK1. This, especially these genes and many other genes, both the receptors can act simultaneously in the brain. And usually they form a dimer, as I showed you, that GR, but they may often form heterodimer because GR and AMR. Actually, AMR, it is known as a promiscuous receptors because they can bind with GR as well as many other steroids, even progesterones also. Anyway, let us discuss the brain response during these stress activities or stress combating systems situations. Now, first, see these curves. See here we described, or rather, it was described by the modern neurobiologist or endocrinologist that the brain response in the 4 stages. First is the basal stage, then onset, termination, and priming. So what happens during the basal stage? It is just the beginning of our normal daily work when little stress are activating us. Then mainly the non-genomic AMRs, not GR. So non-genomic AMRs, and little GRs will be then activated. Just they then sense their signaling mechanism will then just test or determine whether the stress response is sensitive or not. So we started our daily work. If we feel any problem, then whether our stress response will act or not, that time to test that first the non-genomic AMRs and some of the GRs will get activated. So it is the basal stage. Now the onset, it is very important stage. See, onsets, only AMR will be activated. It will perform this dysfunction. Let us see what it can do. So when suppose in daily through beginning of the day or latter part we perceive many stressors, and some of the stressors are anticipated as novel, that means new, then brain will stimulate the sympathetic nervous system as well as CRH release. That will be triggered as usual, and non-genomic AMR then will be rapidly activated by the increasing at stressors posing upon us. So glucocorticoid will be secreted following CRH release. So these glucocorticoids will then bind with that AMR. So these AMR will then activate the limbic system to put more attention and vigilance to the stressors. What is the nature? What is it? What is the nature of what type of stressors we are facing? Is it and it will also promote our memory retrieval. It will help because MR is present throughout the limbic system. It promotes memory retrieval, and because if it is a stressor, whether it is known to us or truly novel, so they will correlate with our previous memories. And that actually help us to follow to develop the actual coping mechanisms. And this MR also enhances the emotional expressions like fear and aggressions in amygdala. Say, suppose your parents scolding. So why will you ignore it, or you will be repulsive, or you will counteract? That emotion-related activities also done by these MR signaling. If the stressor is mild, then usually hippocampus think that hippocampus, by the activities of the hippocampus, it will be in thinking. That means it will be up to the level of thinking activities. That means we can think, let us ignore or let us avoid or that's. So initially we will think how brain will respond to that stressors. That will be the thinking process will be done by hippocampus. But if the stressors is severe, no, they're continuously irritating us and less controllable, then coping strategy is preferred as doing. Then amygdala, since it controls the emotion, aggression, fear, so it will decide. No, it cannot be limited or at the thinking stage. Now you do something. So this thinking to doing that switchover is done by the limbic RNA. So this onset stage, actually our brain formulates what will be our mental repercussions or responses towards the stresses. So these parts mainly MR. And the third stage, the termination stage, what happens? Actually, it is further stress continuous, that stress is posing upon us. So now not the AMR. It is the membrane and genomic GR, because genomic means for long activities. So stress is continuous. Whole day they are irritating us. So then the genomic GRNA present in the limbic and cortex, that will be activated as they were present along with AMRs. So termination is characterized by GR-mediated glucocorticoid actions aimed to prevent defense reactions from overshooting. See, GR was present there, blood. He started other activities also for the to combat the stress. So this GR, brain GR, it will think if that defense mechanism of combating mechanisms may be overdosed, so it will then, what it will do, it will activated GR will then limit the defense, apprehending that it may cause damage if not dampened. So doing process, thinking to doing, if we start counteracting by getting stimulated by other glucocorticoid related activities, then this brain GR will tell us, will try to subside the effect or lower down that effect. So it is the time of rationalization and contextualization of the experience, and for the assessment of violence as occurs in social interactions. So it will help us to rationalize. Now, if you counteract our parents, it may cause many problems. So it will help us to rationalization and to adjust with, or to analyze the situation in context of previous memory or previous interactions or incidences. That's why it will turn us to more altruistic solutions that increase our motivations. So after counteracting, we will then think, no, let it be ignored now, let it be stopped now. So often with that, we show some, we express some altruistic attitudes by motivationals. So at the same time, for physical activities, GR will continuously supply energy to different organs to get recovery from the stressors. So here, this termination phase, GR's role is very important. If it failed to dampen the activated GR's actions, the subject can suffer, even they can die, as happens in the case of termination or exhaustion stage. Because it has been shown by that if GR is ablated in some subjects, or adrenal gland is operated, or in addition disease when glucocorticoid is secreted very low amount, those people cannot combat stress. They get tired. So that's termination, and GR roles is very important. Now last stage is the fourth stage is the priming. Actually, is what memory we got, what experiences we got from the previous reactions by the brain, that will be stored in our memory, so that we can apply it in proper context. And following brain's too much activity, some synapses will be exhausted, so they will be rejuvenated by the using of many growth factors. So during this phase, usually individuals get homeostasis in its mental as well as physical activities. So it appears that the whole bottom of the control system for stress is performed by glucocorticoids, but it is mediated by both GR and MR in a complementary manner. Along these four stages. So nowadays, modern neurobiologists formulated a GR-MR balance hypothesis, which tells that upon imbalance of the GR and MR mediated actions, the initiations as well as the management of the stress response becomes compromised. So if it is overshooted or it is reached beyond the threshold levels. So many neuroendocrine dysregulations or impaired behavioral adaptations can aggravate it, mainly causing many physical damage as well as mental problems. So now I'll be very fast, and just my second part, that stress-induced depression. So it is very important that functions of the, glucocorticoid or HP axis perform very important functions in regulated stress. So if it is overactive, then it causes many adverse situations, including physical and mental. So, since depression is a very common fact, common phenomenon of our modern life, so I will emphasize a little on depressions. So, it is a mental disorder, and it's a emerging or burning mental problem. So, and hidden problem that, as was recognized by WHO in the 2013, and like epidemic. Mhm. And so it is manifested by so many symptoms: persistent sadness, low mood, and I don't feel any interest or pleasure, and get disturbed sleeps, and anhedonia means we become unable to feel any pleasure or to get pleasure, and this is can happen common symptoms of depressions. Now, today, already I discussed the how stress causes depression. Additionally, some other factors aggravated these stress-related depressions, because if there occurs any genetic variations or epigenetic modifications in either in the glucocorticoid gene or expression of the glucocorticoid receptor genes, they may aggravate the stress-related depressions. And additionally, moreover, if we have any early life childhood unfavorable stressful experience, that also act as predisposing factors. That means predisposing means you all know that it may cause later life depressions. So stress, uh, over stress, as well as additional genetic factors, as well as our previous experience, they will all together may lead to a development of depressions. Now, not only the HP axis, since today's main focus on hormone, so other hormones also have some role. Just in one line, that it is a thyroid hormone and estrogen. They helps they regulate the production as well as secretion of many neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters helps in the nerve impulse conductions. So ultimate cause many problems. So, what are the neurotransmitters? Dopamine, serotonin, gamma aminobutyric acids. They all are controlled by uh, along with other hormones. There are other factors. They are also controlled by thyroid and estrogen hormones. Progesterone, it is also known as a relaxation hormones. It also its low secretion causes depression as well as other symptoms of the depressions. And testosterone, both in men and women, it also helps to remove testosterone. And Alzheimer patients, they are very much they always feel depression moods, and that is because of low testosterone. And serotonin, since long back, say 50 years back, serotonin was considered to be anti-depressions, and say serotonergic hypothesis of depression is a very old hypothesis. Scientists have found that serotonin very much involved in the development of depressions. Actually, they increases hippocampal cell proliferations, and hippocampus is a thought process. If we accept the stress or any situations or any factors wrongly, then in the pleasant situations maybe seem to us as unpleasant. So, as it controls hippocampal gel proliferation, so its low synthesis may develop depressions in many patients. Again, cortisol, if it is produced in higher amounts, it can hampers receptor in the hippocampus, serotonin receptors, which may cause depressions. And P21, one of the protein which is found in the brain, that is responsible for serotonin secretion as well as release. In suicidal patients, it was found to be low. That means serotonin very much involved behind the development of depressions. And HP axis, It controls the HP axis as it is upregulated in depressions, but with down regulations in negative feedback controls. That means if HP axis get dysregulated, cortisol secretions will be high, and mostly depressive patients show that the flat circadian rhythm. That's circadian rhythm is also lost. So there is no negative control. So there is mostly high amount of cortisols. And that high cortisol will causes many physical disorders, which is found in the depression patients, and it also helps in the some renal loss in the region in the area of the hippocampus, which helps in the cognition functions and which get disordered in absence of or in presence of dysregulated HP axis. Now, indirectly, HP axis also helps in the depression. So, what it does now, the supraoptic nucleus, it causes increased secretion of vasopressin, which increases suicidal tendency in the patients, depressive patients. And from paraventricular nucleus, it increases oxytocin, which causes eating disorders. There are some patients, depressive patients, show voracious eating, and some do not feel at all to eat or suffers from anorexia. And in the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which controls the biological clock, it is totally lost, and because of dysregulated HP axis. So CRH is another participants of the depressive symptoms. Mainly the series mainly helps in the emotional formulations or emotion related processes it is mainly handled. What happens? Actually, if we have already told you that early life stressful events is a very critical role in depressions. So CRH actually decreases the emotional influences of the early life experiences, memories or early life experiences memories. They decreases the emotional influences caused by early life stressful events. Thus, it protects us from depressogenic and anxiogenic effects. So CRH, if it decreases, then we'll suffer depression-like symptoms. Now, again, the glucocorticoid rules, because glucocorticoid is, as I told you, the main regulator of stress as well as response. Now, what it does in depressions. So, actually, two opposite mechanisms do exist in case of depressions. We know that depression results from excessive actions of glucocorticoids, overstressed. And excessive glucocorticoid have to work excessively. That can be done only by increased glucocorticoid receptor signaling, because it is the GR who executes glucocorticoid functions. But at the same time, glucocorticoid functional is impaired in the depressions. So there is the confusion like this, that which comes first, egg or chicken? Anyway, recent workers, mainly the molecular neurobiologists, they showed that mainly genetic as well as epigenetic factors behind this, behind the dysregulated activities of glucocorticoid as well as the receptors. Some of their findings I'm mentioning here. One is that differential phosphorylation, if occurs in some signaling molecules like this, it may alter nuclear translocation or the transactivations, which may result in GC resistance. That means target won't act, will be no more sensitive to glucocorticoid, and that is very much common in depressions. Again, alternate splicing of what? Glucocorticoid mRNA. Glucocorticoid mRNA has 9 exons, and if alternate splicing occurs in the exon A variants like here, it may play in the development of pathogenesis of major depressions. So it is the glucocorticoid receptors genetic sequences where any alternations may lead to depressions. Again, microRNA. It has been shown by very recent workers. So microRNA, that is stage of small non-coding RNAs, which may cause so many important functions. So microRNA, some of microRNA, like this is base pair, they have huge effects on whole adrenal gland synthesis and their activities. They may disturb the glucocorticoid synthesis and their biogenic pathway. Even they can cause hamper in the glucocorticoids expression. They may cause silencing of the glucocorticoid mRNA. So thereby binding of the glucocorticoid with its receptors will be hampered. And this decreased binding as well as expressions of glucocorticoid receptors will be hampered. So it will consequently result in less glucocorticoid sensitivity as well as more depression-like symptoms. Again, it has been shown that many transcription factors like FKBP5, its synthesis, if dysregulated, it can also helps in development of depressions. In normal healthy persons, what happens? These transcription factors remain associated with GR or the transcription factors or some molecules. It remains GR. So whenever a healthy person glucocorticoid attaches, it get released and it helps in the translocations. But in the chronic stress or depression patients, what happens? These proteins is present in huge amount. So it needs not a single molecule or actual amount of GC. It needs more GC to bind with the GRs, to be released from these activated GRs. So if in depressive patients, this associate chaperones or transcription activated pattern, they needs huge amount of glucocorticoid to be bound with the GR to get released and then activated will causes its expressions. So normally what happens? Normal GR activity or their signaling activity is executed and right HP axis remains normal. But if these proteins gets high, it causes reduction in GCGR activity, resulting in increased baseline of cortisol levels because it demands huge glucocorticoid to be produced. And again, resulting in that in turn result in dysregulated HP axis, and which is found mainly in depressions. So these kinds of transcription factors production is also control the depressions. And here is a most interesting factors. This is early life adverse activities or experience which was many stressful. If it has been found that if we had early life adverse situations which was very stressful, then what happened? Hypermethylations, that means epigenetic activities. It causes during these situations in later life. This is a NR3C1 is the GC targeted genes, and it is a promoter. In early life, if any person has early life adverse situations, which is very stressful, in that case, these factors cannot bind with the promoter because of here huge methylations happens. That results ultimately expressions of less GR, and that ultimately results in huge increased cortisol levels or GR resistance and major depressive disorders. But if we had, normal persons and they are actually promoter binding occurs and increase in GR expressions normally happens. So this is epigenetic alterations by hypermethylations is very much related to the development of suicidal tendency in the depressive, major depressive disorders or MDD. Actually, it was found after postmortem patients. Postmortem of the depressive patients, suicide who did suicide. Their in brain, it was found that these sequences get hypermethylated. So one more factor nowadays it is discovered that some cell membrane pump which is present in multi-drug resistance medicine like these, they may expel the glucocorticoid to reach the target cells. Thus, less glucocorticoid will be available for the binding with the receptors, which ultimately causes glucocorticoid resistance. So from this brief discussion, it appears that depression is a serious or very burning problem, psychiatric disorder that is mainly resulted from dysregulated HP axis or altered secretion of glucocorticoid, and in turn results glucocorticoid receptor disorders. That all leads to receptor resistance as well as glucocorticoid resistance, and ultimate their effect is exerted or executed in depressions. So, after performing many experiments in human and animal model, it has been found that epigenetic modifications, as just now I described, it explains that how one's gene and environment can interact with the HP axis. An early life experience, early life stressful experience can interact with the later life HP axis functions, and that can generate depression-like mental disorders in later life. So I think this is enough, and this fast and short lecture was within Eustace level. It didn't cross the Eustace, or you are not distressed. So in a single word, we can say that we were somehow we came to know that how our brain and neuroendocrine system continuously fighting to make us free from stress or to keep our body and mental health normally. Still, if we are the rational peoples, being rational, if we increase our self-knowledge and self-acceptance and confidence, and if we enlighten our interest, and if we enhance our tolerance power for frustration, discomfort, and we increase flexibility, if we take the challenge for taking any risk, then we will definitely can overcome many stressful situations, because if we put more effort, hippocampus also has the neuroplasticity or neurogenesis power. Okay, so today after this.
Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your presentations on hormones and stress with special reference to depression. Thank you so much. It proves that you are a fascinating teacher, that you inspired all our people, and especially our audience and students from various field. Thank you so much.
Welcome. But I think I crossed the time limit.
Yeah, it's we have
it's a vast subject, Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Latter part I was too fast.
Even though we have a number of huge interested participants still listening, still with us, it's all because of your lecture.
My pleasure.
Today. Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am. With your permission, shall we take some of the questions from our participants?
If your time permits. Okay.
Yeah. I will take some of the questions from the participants. The first question is that what are the efforts of cortisol on our immune responses? Does it cause immunosuppression or increases inflammation during prolonged stress?
Yeah, I think I explained, but I couldn't make you understand why I don't know. As such, glucocorticoids it immunosuppresses because it aggravates anti-inflammatory actions. Inflammation is a helpful process. Often we think that inflammation will cause so many diseases if it is aggravated. As such, inflammation is involved in the innate immunity, so it helps us. It is a defense mechanism, rather we can say simply. But glucocorticoid is immunosuppressive because it is anti-inflammatory. It inhibits development of inflammations. That's why it inhibits immune responses. As you know, COVID patients, that cytokine storms, because a body defense mechanism control keep always the control. So glucocorticoid, if gets high, it stimulates the inflammatory cytokine secretions, which causes inflammations that will put or pose more and more stress to our brain, and that time immune systems will fail. Ultimately, inflammations will be very dangerous to us, because of inflammations will produce some other additional problems in addition to the actual its cause, let's say for infections, as it happens during case of COVID. Clear? Okay. So glucocorticoid as such is anti-inflammatory, but during stress, prolonged stress, it becomes and
Partha?
it becomes inflammatory. In other sense, in other words, you can tell. That means it inhibits immunity.
Partha, I have
Yes.
one more question. Partha?
Yeah, you can proceed with your
Partha, I have
question,
a
sir. Yeah, you can
Partha,
proceed with your question.
I have a question to madam. When we are in a stressful mood, we may not feel hungry. That it can cause us the problem. Is there any influence to hormone, specific hormone to influence to the for a hungry resistance, man?
Yeah, I told you that it is the CRH. CRH controls the appetite. So if CRH becomes altered, it reduces our hunger center. It cannot stimulate our hunger. So that times often we feel no appetite during depression moods. But often it no contrarily they and one factor show different roles. Sometimes we feel initially when depression starts, we may feel more hungry to overcome consciously. Brain's other part, they consciously effort. They put effort so that consciously we may take food like this. But mostly chronic depressive patients do not feel hunger because of it is a cortisol effect. Okay. Hello, can you hear me? Oh, Parthu somehow was left, and so can anyone continue the session? If anybody have any question, can directly ask now. Still, because still I'm here.
Yeah, hello, ma'am.
Okay, is there some
Ma'am,
problem?
am I audible for you?
Yeah, very much. Hello, can you hear me, Parthu?
Ma'am, am I audible for you?
Yeah, very much. Can't you hear me?
Hello?
I can hear you, Parthu. Can't you hear me?
Hello?
Hello?
Ma'am, are you in the platform?
Yeah, very much.
Am I audible?
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? But in Gmeet, I can hear you. I'm not audible. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hello.
Huh? Why I became inaudible, not audible to you? I don't know.
Yeah, hello.
Hello, I can hear you. You ask some other people. Can they hear me?
Ma'am, you're audible.
You can hear me, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Uh, what happens? I think Partha got some problem. So if you have any question, you can directly
Ma'am,
ask.
am I audible there?
Yeah. I can hear you, and audience who are in this platform, they can also hear me. I think it is a problem with your Bluetooth.
Hello, ma'am. I have a question. Can I ask?
Yeah. Why not?
Does the dopaminergic mesolimbic pathway involved in the reward circuitry help to combat the depression or anxiety?
Which pathway? Which pathway?
Dopaminergic mesolimbic reward circuitry pathway.
Maybe. Still, its working is going on. Dopamine means it's a amine that is also biosynthetic pathway. Dopamine and serotonin, dopaminergic. So they are also being treated as the antidepressant drugs. Many amines are now being experimented for the treatment of depressions.
Okay.
So since today I'm focused only the hormones, not at the amines like biogenic and dopamine, but dopamine also because MAO inhibitor, MAO inhibitor,
Yes, ma'am.
monoamine, that is very uh, uh, fruitful for the treatment of depressions. But since depressions is not it is a assemblage of symptoms. So many nerves are involved behind this. Some are dopaminergic, some are cholinergic. So total cure is not possible, I think. Chronic depressive patients often get cool, often get hyper. Often they suffer from bipolar disorders.
Yes.
Dose is very effective.
Ma'am,
Do you
am
have,
I audible now?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, ma'am. Just now I am audible. You are being
So I
audible for
asked
me.
that sweet girl Rachana. He herself asked some question. Yeah.
Yeah. Shall pick questions from the chat box of the YouTube, ma'am. There are
Okay.
still some questions.
I'm still here. Though got you distressed.
Yeah, I couldn't access. It's all about network issues.
No.
Yeah, I got it back. Yes.
Tell me.
Yes, ma'am. The next question is from YouTube, and it is from Abhinash Nayak. He is asking that which type of food provide more stress, whether carbohydrates or pulses or green vegetables or non-vegetarian foods, spices, milk products, or poultry items.
No. Actually, I'm not a nutrition biologist or nutritionist. So I cannot tell this much. But some food may have relations with food because mostly they are advertisement that chocolate or Cadbury's gives you feel good symptoms. So actually depression, we need a huge amount of energy. That means food, I don't know actually uh, how food controls the secretion of different neurotransmitters, like just now Rachna asked me what about dopamine or other things. But depression is a deviation of a normal mood. Mood as such is a it's a assemblage of so many aspects like depression, anxiety. Mm. So really, I can tell that which food actually affect our depressions. But many hormones can control the appetite. Mm. So appetite has some rules for depressions, but food specifically, really, I can tell. But vitamins actually they stimulates the activities of different biogenic amines or secretions of different hormones also, because vitamins, most of the vitamins acts as coenzymes. So some foods, especially vitamin-rich foods, may help in the activation of different hormones or the correlated enzymes activity.
Yeah, ma'am. But does food has its own impact on our endocrine systems as well, right?
Huh? Do you have any more question?
Yeah. The next question is from YouTube channel. What are the role of glucocorticoid over granulocyte stimulating factor?
Granulocytes, it increases, but it decreases the number of neutrophil. As I told you, but basophil and eosinophil somehow found that they may increase their number. I showed you. Okay.
Yeah. The next question is that
eosinophil is involved in the allergic reactions.
Yeah.
Tell me other questions.
Yeah. How meditation and the exercises helps to decrease stress? Does it affect the glucocorticoid actions?
No, actually, it keeps cool downs the stress. If, as I told you, as I showed you, that during the stage of resistance or existence, brain get damaged. Brain lost its function over the HP axis. So motivations means we are putting efforts to keep our brain cool or to keep the brain in normal actions, so that it can control, it can have the control over HP axis. If HP axis is normal, that means the negative feedback is working, then glucocorticoid level can be lowered or up to the physiological level. If brain get excited, if we put more stress, as I told you, different phases, the different receptors will be activated. So consequently, the HP axis will be dysregulated and resulting in high amount of cortisol, because negative feedback will be lost. That's why meditation means focusing the thought process or channelized. So if you have irrational thoughts or some aggressive thoughts, that hippocampus may be overactivated, or firstly it will be overactivated, ultimately it will be tired to send the message to the HP axis regulation. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll pass on to the next question. The next question is that how depression and anxiety shown as hypothyroidism symptoms to be cured?
No. Actually, hypothyroidism means, as I told you, thyroid helps in the development of many brain part. Even when we were in mother's womb, that time also, mother's thyroid as well as the embryo's thyroid is very much control the development of the child brain. So if our brain development is altered or it not occurs properly, then a different number of cells will be decreased, and then the neurotransmitter will be not secreted properly, and thyroid is control the development of brain. So it that turn it regulates the secretions of neurotransmitters, impulse propagations. So that's why hypothyroidism may causes depression symptoms by altering the production as well as release of different neurotransmitters. Actually, depression parts like since I was little slow or elaborate in first part, so depression part I make it short. I made it short, and it is more interesting. I think it was more interesting to the audience. But
Yeah.
we actually deal with the hormones, not the psychological aspects of depression. Anyway, I will try my best to answer, reply all of them.
Yeah, sure, man. If anybody else have any questions in the platform, yeah,
Partha,
you
one
can
more question.
yeah, you can ask.
Partha, actually, there is saying that after having the lunch, particularly after having our meals, people may feel the
Good
sleepy. But there is saying that because of
that is another thing. That is another thing. That is
no,
not related with mental. Tell me.
no. Actually, there is saying that because of the hormone serotonin, tryptophan, insulin, that it triggered to sleepy. So is it right or wrong?
No, that another symptom. It is a little bit right, because I think no functions is controlled by not a single factor, either by not a single hormone or neurotransmitter. When we in full stomach, that receptors, the stretch receptor send that's good feel that I am now stretched, so I won't be further stimulated. That type of feelings, full stomach, that subsides, that cool down the brain's satiety centers, and it increases little serotonin level, so we can feel asleep. But we can, if we put effort, we can overcome that.
Oh, yes.
The stretching of the muscle wall of the stomach sends some tiredness like feelings. It can generate in the brain. That's why we often feel sleepy after meal.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, but serotonin as such is secreted in diurnal rhythm. It is as such secreted in nighttime. But it has also circadian rhythm like secretion of circadian rhythm secretion like glucocorticoid hormone. Serotonin also has a diurnal rhythm, mainly secreted in nighttime. That's why most of the antidepressant medicines contain serotonin.
Oh, okay.
Because our life is very much obedient to that circadian rhythm that is controlled by the brain. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any more questions?
Yeah, the next question is that, are the synthesized corticoids acts natural one in its mechanism with the binding the same receptor also?
Yeah. Artificial hormones, otherwise, if any artificial hormones, if it cannot bind with the receptors, then it will be of no use. Artificial, that is dexamethasone like this, and these are the artificial steroids, not artificial glucocorticoids. Usually we tell the name of the hormones, but it is synthesized. That's often they can bind with the receptors. Otherwise, how will it act? Because all hormones needs its receptors to be activated, or it will elicit the proper signaling mechanisms. And whether where it has the same kinds of receptors, there only it will act, not in other part.
Yeah. The next question is that how do the glucocorticoids influence the blood-brain barrier?
Steroids being large, no, yeah, it can reach. because blood-brain barrier has that systems. It will allows. Uh, it won't allow larger molecules, but smaller molecules can easily cross. Otherwise, how we are surviving? Brain has so many receptors for so many molecules. If they are not reaching, then brain won't work. Blood-brain barrier or blood-testis barrier, they actually protect those who are antigenic, not non-self, and the size is very much important. So it can
Yeah.
easily reach.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
steroid molecules, no.
Yes, ma'am.
Larger proteins cannot reach there. Tell me.
Yeah, the next question is that how does brain frequencies affect the hormones level in our body?
Brain frequency.
Yes, ma'am.
I couldn't get the question. Brain. Whenever it gets stimulates, it gets stimulated by some stimuli. Then only it gets activated. Brains has not
Oh,
such automatic pulse generating systems like as we have in the heart. No.
yes. What about the frequencies like alpha, beta, and delta? These frequencies are about brain. Do you have any? What is your opinion on these? Does brain has tendencies to move on to or fluctuates between these frequencies?
Yeah, almost all because brain, it's very tricky questions. Really, glucocorticoid receptors. No, she's asking. The candidate is asking.
It's my question, ma'am.
No, it's your question. Okay, it is yet known that smooth muscles usually have alpha beta 2 receptors, but MR and GR that also present in the. I think it will be beta 2. I think in brain it will be beta 2 receptors,
Yeah.
and some other receptors are also there. But specifically, I don't know which category. Beta must be there because beta
Yes.
is organ specific. Beta is in the heart and liver and smooth muscle related organs. They are mainly the alpha receptors.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am. With this, we wind up. Thank you so much for patiently listening all of our questions and answering
I will
all of.
I will express my gratitude that still I think few are there in the platform.
Yeah, is there and YouTube also we have many there and your people remains for your lecture. It really fascinating to be even the time is rushing you towards a lunch. Actually, it is a lunch time for Indians.
No matter.
People are staying with us. I should thank you as well as our participants who remain with us
Welcome.
throughout this program. I extend my sincere gratitude on behalf of my
It's also
entire
grateful
team.
to discuss many very because in my early research life I did many experiments with stress that time.
Yes,
After that long gap, I for this lecture I read and so the latest informations, the genetic aspects really I came to know. So what research became so advanced, So from the suicidal patients, they are taking brain samples and measuring this is protein and this is amines, and then they are finding that where DNA methylations are methylations and which part causes uh, again aggravated suicidal tendency. So it is because of you. Since you asked me to deliver a lecture on the hormone, and because of this COVID, so I read this really stress-related papers and hormones role behind this.
oh, by request, my request already stress exists since this pandemic. I put you in stress by requesting. But when I come across your CV, it says that your PhD is in reproductive endocrinology.
Yeah. So
Uh,
actually, that is career-oriented work. No, but my first love is endocrinology. Any endocrinological aspects. See, hormone is the main, one of the main regulator of our body functions. See, we generally know thyroid disorder that will cause any metabolism, but thyroid has so many role in the brain development. Even neural tube degenerations, thyroid have roles. Actually, this is rare aspect. So we hardly do work, and it needs a very sophisticated laboratory also. So it's my passion to find out the where my hormones is activating, and the concept has been changed. No, nowadays it is known that so many organs, including brain and heart, also secrete hormone. So what we read and now what I'm teaching totally changed. So
Yeah,
endocrinology is a vast because it includes everything, neuroendocrine and molecular biology, because ultimately it acts through DNA levels. No, it aggravates, it stimulates GR, and that is also controlled by so DNA level. Ultimately, it goes through the not the cell, very minute parts of the cells. It regulates the functions of very minute part of the cells. That's why if any people like to learn endocrinology, it's a very vast like ocean. You have to read everything. Sometimes I brain get puzzled or distressed, correlating everything.
Yeah, it's obvious when we come across your CV, it tells everything about you. You are an endocrinology specialist,
No,
basically, but
I'm a learner of endocrinology. You can rather tell me. Really,
yeah, but
so many things are going on. So little is known to me.
yeah, your interest now falls in bird nesting.
No,
How
no,
you
actually,
correlate all such
yeah,
things?
no, it's a part related. It was my passion, no, because
Yeah,
it was my passion. And that part of
and you
school
have
and
carried out your board diversity project too in bird nesting.
yeah, yeah. But to tell you frankly, because students are not, they are much more interested to put their photos or own pictures in the WhatsApp or in Facebook. No?
Oh, through that you get
Their
fascinated.
motivation is something different. But
Oh,
me at this age, in this pandemic situations, often visited so many nesting fields.
oh,
It
through
is
ecology photographies, you got interested and passionate to
no,
work in bird
not
nesting.
that photography, but how do they build the nest? This is a so intricate techniques, functions. No, if you even see a crow nest, how do they build the nest? They put so much effort, and behind this, so much intelligence. You will be surprised. Really, it is very interesting, and it's my early childhood hobby to observe the birds nesting, because I got a chance, very few. Since my childhood, I used to study. Whenever I get chance, I go to interior village to study the birds nesting. Really, and they are so intelligent. So keep in mind that so many they put so alert birds nesting. It's a really that's a vast aspect.
Yeah, really, their architecture is really fantastic,
Yeah.
and I think from only from them, the human has get an idea about building and
Yeah,
constructions
yeah.
as well.
And actually, I was advisor of that project. Some university professors. She herself is an architect. No,
Oh,
she could try to correlate with the birds' architecture in making their nests and with human architecture.
yeah,
Because
it's
we
quite
also think
wondering.
that this part will kept open to for aerations. Bird also thinks like that.
Yes.
But it is very temporary. Birds nesting is not permanent structures. That's just for breeding activities. But
Yeah,
they,
but specific birds build their specific nest, isn't it?
yeah. And now
Uh,
industrialization changed. They pushed the bird to make nests in human habitation. Some forest tree-loving birds are also doing nest because they are compelled to do nest in elsewhere because of unavailability of their proper actual nesting sites. That's my main focus of research.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am, for accepting and joining with us. And what would be the last message before you leave, before you signing off from this platform? There are many enthusiastic participants being
I told
staying
you,
with us. Yes,
since
what would be the last message? What's the home taken message for our participants?
so focus on yourself. Really, if what you like, you first think about that. Against your likings, against your passion, if you try to do something, you couldn't reach the optimum level. No,
Yeah,
really,
yes,
especially in these stressful situations.
yes,
I think
yeah.
especially the students are not yet got enough time to explore themselves. So
Yes.
it is the time to explore themselves yourself. So don't get depressed or frustrated.
Yeah, sure. Yes, you are